Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RENNSPORT Founders League. My name is Lino and I will host you through this evening together with the well-renowned Tim Ireland.
World-renowned? Wow.
At this stage,
Hello everybody.
we are here for round 2 of Season 3, and today we will be racing the GT4s. We had lots of fun with the GT4s in other Founders League races as well as normal RCEs and stuff, but I mean, it's definitely a car we know on the Nordschleife at this stage, isn't it?
It is, yeah, for sure. It's one of my favourite cars to drive, so I'm very happy to be having the GT4s here on the Nordschleife. Although perhaps we shouldn't say GT4s plural.
That's true. I mean, we gotta admit, since the M4 GT4 was attainable at the EWC to be in your garage as a car that you own, and since people then could collect mileage and stats on them, we have seen a steady decline of the other GT4 car being used. So, maybe this had more of an impact than you could have anticipated. Even the well-known Audi driver Joachim Thunder, who's usually always took Audi, is driving the BMW M4 simply for the sake of it having stats counted on it.
Yeah, people do love to see number go up.
I mean, in all fairness, I do too, so I'd probably also not scare away from doing that. However, we will still see a very great race today, I'm sure of that. And yeah, the driver roster we have kind of speaks volumes about it, because out of the cars that we currently have in this session, none is lower than a Silver 2. And of course we have Dominic Lalla in here, who's Platinum.
Yeah, I think he is, yeah. So we've definitely got a fairly competitive grid going on. A lot of these guys know each other and know how each other drives, so there's going to be a lot of trust between them, so hopefully we can have some nice close racing.
I mean, with the GT4 cars, I know the GT4 cars are known for the so-called freight train, but on the other hand, these cars can get super close to each other without having too many issues. So I'm quite sure that we will get some very close racing, especially when you think back to some other races that we had in the recent times here in the Founders League.
Yeah, we've had some really good close racing going on in the Founders League, and it's been really fun to watch. And of course, with it today being the M4 Cup, it's all equal machinery, as people like to say.
Kind of would lead us well to the M2 Cup that is being announced on the radio check recent time. But, well, maybe we'll get into that a bit later on. Maybe in terms of championship, this could also be fairly interesting, because if we take a look at the standings, Joachim Thunder not here, unfortunately, Eric Häusler as well. So Dominic Ladler, Pascal John, and Dennis Kurzer can make some points. Dennis Kurzer, unfortunately, last time without the possibility to start, so let's hope this time will go a bit better for him.
Seems to be in the service so far, and he is driving, so it's boding well at the beginning.
Another driver that we see back here today, we haven't seen in quite some time, with a big drift through Muko, and that was absolutely awesome. And I think, didn't he pull that move in Schwedenkreuz as well at some point in a GT4?
I think so, yeah.
Ali Zaya is back, and what a way to re-enter competition. Yeah, the Lebanese driver, he hasn't been with us for quite some time. Last time we seen him in official competition was in RCL Season 3 Round 1, I think, in Jeddah, if I remember that correctly. So it has been quite some time. But it's good to see him back, and we know how good he is. And I mean, his driving talent, he just had to prove to us. I don't think he knew that we were switch cameras to him, but Or it's just a typical driving style and we never really noticed.
Showboating for the crowds.
Drives a BMW after all. Julian Chico is also back, and he's been on a very good run recently, also with there through HAVIT. But he has had some pretty dang good races in the last couple of weeks. I mean, if you think back to last week in the RCL event at Spa, had a very decent performance.
He's not had a lot of luck, I don't think, in this qualifying lap. I think he's had a couple of slowdown penalties. So he's a bit off the pace at the minute, but I'm sure he'll make it up, especially in the race.
And he also got another lap, so you have 2 laps in this qualifying session, as long as you can get them within 20 minutes of time. I don't think that will be a particular problem for these drivers.
You wouldn't think so. You'd hope not. Dominic Badler already going down the Dottinger Hua, so he's well on his way to his second lap right now.
Going through Antonio's Buche. These cars are pretty fast on the Dottinger Hua. Of course, less aero than a GT3, bit less power, but overall still achieve about the same speeds and can even be faster than a GT3 in some circumstances. So depending on the BOP and stuff, but as some of you might know, these cars are not necessarily power restricted, but BOP restricted on the 24 hour of Nürburgring and NLS events, just because otherwise they would just get past the GT3s on the Dottinger Höhe, which would be semi-unfortunate. Imagine making your way through a field of GT4s through Schwalbenschwanz and Galgenkopf, just to have them all pass you on the Dottinger Höhe again. You can do nothing about it.
It would be fairly frustrating.
Perhaps also dangerous, but anyway. Pascal Jordan on his way to end this lap. Hot entry into the final turn. Oh, and too wide over the curbing. Won't be an invalidation to his lap, but a slowdown nonetheless. And of course hurting his start for the second lap. Just went a bit too hot. Julian Chicot took second. Dominic Lala so far having the best lap. Timothy Fridge also came across the timing line in the meantime.
Yeah, the M4 can maybe go as quick down Dottinger Hua as a GT3, but you've got to remember at the end of it that the stopping distance is not the same.
Yeah, I mean, also the entry into that complex through Tiega on the left right-hander. The first one, the fast one. Kind of scary in the GT4.
Yeah, it can get a bit sketchy.
But we don't have Joachim Thunder here today. We have Joachim Jentsch, a new face to this race. Puts it in 6th for now. Let's see what he can do. But a bit fiery on the exit there. Spinning up the rear tires quite a lot. I think now the second lap will be much better in many ways for most of the drivers, because we've seen a lot of them struggle. I personally seen a lot of them getting to grips with the car in practice, running right on the Grand Prix circuit. But now with the second lap, many of them should be dialed in much more, feeling much more comfortable as well. We can always see it, Alizar only 2/10 down on Dominic Ladl in the first sector. Julian Chicot even up on Dominic Ladl in the first one, just a bit down in the second one. Let's go on board with Julian Chicot.
Yeah, we seem to be getting kind of 2 groups forming, as we tend to see with our drivers, our regular drivers, with Ladler, Sikor and Fritsch, and then further down with Zahir, because the new guy, Jensk, and Pascal Jordan, although Pascal Jordan, we all know he didn't particularly have a great lap, so he may well improve. Well, I hope he'll improve.
Pascal Jordan took his first leading laps in this car on this track in official competition. Yeah. That's where we seen him the first time in the last season in the GT4s, where he had that constant switching positions with Dominic Ladler and Adrian Lunio, I think it was. Leading the lap, then making a mistake through Arbenberg, losing the lead, regaining the lead, and all that kind of stuff. It was an awesome race to watch nonetheless. But we do know, we do know that he is capable of much more than being 60 seconds of Dominic Ladler. I expect him to be within 10 seconds, I say, of Dominic Ladler. Unless he does a bigger mistake this lap. Of course, 10 seconds sounds like a whole lot, and on any other track it would be quite some time, but on the Nordschleife, with an 8-minute 40 lap time, that really isn't. You always have to think about the percentage, basically, of the lap.
Well, he seems to be keeping it fairly tidy so far, commentators curse aside.
Lost a bit of time on the Grand Prix circuit, but on the Nordschleife he's right there with Dominic Ladler. Miss Kurzer, meanwhile, has parked his car, so wasn't quite happy with his second lap.
Grid position can be very important, but unless you're going to make up a lot of time, it's not super important to go all out in qualifying. You do only end up a few meters behind everyone else after all.
I mean, we've seen it last week, didn't we, where it kind of switched up all the time with the different strategies of the TCRs. Not taking tires, taking tires.
Yeah, we had some really interesting strategies going on. It was a fun race to watch.
Format this time the same, 60-minute race with fuel consumption activated. So I don't think we will see this kind of strategy plays today, because the GT4 is a bit easier on the tires with the rear wheels being driven. Of course, in the touring cars the front wheels are being driven and therefore used much more than on any other touring car. But I think it could still be very interesting in terms of where the pit lane mistakes, because it was kind of messed up last time, I'd say.
Yeah, the pits definitely kind of made or braked your race last time. So yeah, there was a lot of interesting things going on in the pit lane that really changed the outlook of the on-track race. Whereas, like you said today, I'm expecting them to all be a lot more kind of uniform with their pit lane, with their pit strategy, but there's still that factor of getting a good pit stop can still gain you a couple of seconds.
Dominic Ladler through ice curve. When was the last time Dominic Ladler actually started from pole? Can't quite remember.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? Because he didn't have very many poles in the RCL races.
He did have quite a good amount of wins. But
he did, yes.
In terms of pole position, of course we know that Dominic Ladler is probably the most consistent driver and has a very, very strong race pace. But I think he always had like the misfortune to have some of the best qualifiers with him in the session. I mean, an Adrian Lunio, for example, is incredibly quick over a lap time. Same goes for Maron Bernauda, for example. So he always had those people to fight against in qualifying. And while he may have beaten them in the race, it was just a bit too much for qualifying. But today it's looking good for him. Now coming out of Gallenkopf onto the Döttinger Höhe. So let's see if this one will be another improvement on his behalf. I see some purple sectors.
He does have some purple sectors right now. I was just looking through, and Julian Sicot has a couple, but Dominic Ladler definitely has a lot of purple going on in his time bar.
Into Horn Ryan, keep it neat and tidy. And across the line, it's an 8:43, 6-second improvement on his last lap. I think the next one across the line will be Timothy Fritsch, followed by Julian Sicot. So let's see. See some improvements, especially in the first half of the lap. Some red sectors as well, though. So
he's making a bit of a comeback towards the end with another green sector there. No purples, though.
comes across the line. It is an improvement, but I think only by 1 or 2 seconds. Julian Sicot now across the line. This will be interesting. 6 seconds shaved off his pace. So that's an 8:50. Alizar now.
Alizar also looking for some improvement, and he's still got a purple sector from sector 2. A lot of green on his timing sheet.
Alizar goes third, not first. Pascal John now goes third, so Alizar down to 4th, but all within 10 seconds, as I've predicted. It was definitely not lucky to predict. All skill.
Pure skill.
Last one to finish his lap time will be Joachim Jentsch.
He's got a couple of green sectors as well, so he could be looking for a bit of a time improvement.
And I think he called it quits before. No, the time has run out, actually.
Yeah.
So our grid is looking Dominic Ladler, Julian Sicot in the front row, followed by Pascal John, Alizar, yeah? Timothy Fritsch and Dennis Kurzer make up row 3. And then it's Joachim Jentsch in P7. There we see them lined up on the grid. 7 BMW M4 GT4.
All helpfully pick the same car just to make our jobs super easy.
And we go racing. It's not so good start for Dominic Ladler, as Julian Sicot immediately puts it into first position. He's also coming under threat. I think that's by Alizar, yeah? Bit of a scramble further down. Oh, and Dominic Ladler is hit. Side by side further down between the 7 car and 5. Timothy Fritsch against Dennis Kurzer. But up front, it's Julian Sicot leading this race. Dominic Ladler all the way down into 7th position.
Julian Sicot and Pascal Jordan coming out of that one relatively unscathed and with a couple of seconds lead on top of everyone else, but they are within half a second of each other, so I'm sure that the fight is well and truly on between those two.
Joachim Jentsch, meanwhile, up into P5. And indeed, as Enrico Breuninger in chat puts it good, another last to first challenge for him. You will see about that. But it's definitely a good setup to do so. But up front, it's Julian Sicot. He has led last time around. Actually, it might have been Alizar who hit or clashed with Dominic Lala there through turn 1. Oh, and Pascal Jordan with a big off there. Big hit there going into Hudson-Bach. I mean, for him, luckily, damage is turned off in the Founders League. But that was a big one. Oh, and Joachim Jentsch and Dominic Ladler.
Yeah, I think Ladler went side by side with Jentsch just after Sabine Smith's curve, and I think there was a bit of a curb-based incident, and it ended up taking them both out.
Definitely not a good start to this race for Dominic Ladler.
But another person who's probably really happy that damage is off right now.
That is very true. But Julien Chicot at the moment is running away with it. Of course, helped by the mistake from Pascal Jordan.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a dream start there. He's got a couple of seconds gap, so he's not under too much pressure right now. Just got to sit back and get in his rhythm. Maybe keep an eye on where Dominic Ladler is as he works his way back up the field.
Of course, it's 60 minutes in racing distance, so we can expect about 7 laps. If I'm not mistaken, 7 or 8 laps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be one or the other, I think. So, got a couple of laps to go before anyone starts pitting, obviously. But then we'll kind of get a bit more of an idea of what people's strategies are going to be. Dominic Ladler with quite a lot of work to do right now. He's 11 seconds behind Timothy Frisch. But and then Frisch is a second behind Dennis Kurtzer, but then there's another 5 seconds before Ali Zahir. So definitely a lot of work before he starts to get more where he usually is in races.
On the other hand,
for himself a bit of a handicap.
Yeah, on the other hand, for him, currently he is up on open road, so maybe something he does like for a change, and as I say that, he puts it into the wall for a quick moment there. Timothy Frisch keeping up well with Dennis Kurtzer though, I gotta say. Both of them having a very good start, keeping it out of trouble. While having a side-by-side moment themselves.
Ali Zahir seems to be getting very close to Pascal Jordan right now as well.
I will be right back with footage. Definitely an action-packed starting phase of this race. Not quite what we expected the action to be, but
No, that's true. These guys do like to throw us some curveballs when it comes to races, though. We can sit and decide, okay, like these guys are racing, we kind of know roughly people's paces, we can get an idea of what the race might be, but as soon as it starts, it's something entirely different every time.
What we definitely do know now is that Julien Chicot has another good chance for him. He's still searching for victory lane. I know that is pretty American, and we are currently at the Nordschleife, which isn't quite American, but still trying to find his way onto the top step of the podium. He has two fairly strong opponents right behind him with Pascal, Jordan, Alizaya, who have switched positions again. But they are 5.2 seconds and 5.8 seconds behind him respectively. But it also seems like Dominik Lala is slowly regaining his pace. He isn't losing out any more time to Julian Checo, but he's slowly gaining, actually.
Yeah, he's closed up the gap to Timothy Frisch by a few seconds. Obviously, Frisch and Kurtzer have been having a bit of a battle, so that's giving him a chance to catch up a little bit more.
Speaking of their battle, it's very close here through the usually not so overtake friendly complex of the Nordschleife. If Timothy Frisch can keep up.
Keeping the gap pretty close, aren't they?
Yeah. And
sorry, tripping up you up there.
No, good. I mean, better than with Remco, I guess. Of course, I'm kidding. Would love to have him in the booth at some point again. But who knows, maybe at some point. But if Timothy Frisch can get a good exit here out of the Galgenkopf, he has a chance to slipstream by. Of course, last time with the TCR cars, we couldn't quite do that, since the TCR cars just were gear limited. Meaning at a certain speed you just can't accelerate anymore. But the GT4s actually have another gear that you usually don't use, with 7th gear being usually a fuel economy gear.
Yeah, you can just about hit it at the end of Dottinger, or if you really want to, but you don't. You definitely don't have to.
Oh, and Alizar is stationary in
Hohenrhein. Had a bit of a brake failure coming at the end of the Dottinger hole there, and just hitting the worst possible place head on.
Austin dropped him right back to Timothy Frisch and Dominik Ladler, ironically. Meanwhile, up front, the gap has come down to 1.6 seconds as well, so Julian Checo at some point has lost a lot of time. But now we have a train of 4 led by Dennis Kurzer.
It's a close train here, but I think Dominik Ladler is going to be very eager to get past. I mean, he's normally the kind of like mild-mannered person of the grid, and waits for a good gap and always makes nice clean overtakes. So it'll be, I don't know. I think he might be perhaps a bit more aggressive today.
Meanwhile, Dennis Kurzer was a bit too aggressive exiting the Dunlop car because he lit up the rear tires and nearly spun out. Was a good effort to keep it on the road, but now valuable for Dominik Ladler to get past. Meanwhile, up front, Alizar and Timothy Frisch are going at it. Dominik Ladler now to the inside of the Vidol. Oh wait, that's Advan Bow, sorry. Now into Vidol. What a pass through the chicane, you don't see that often.
It was a good clean pass as well. Both drivers left plenty of room. Good to see.
In the background we could see that Dennis Kurzer did struggle again with the rear tires. He definitely has to watch out to not burn them now completely. Because you at some point enter a loop where you just can't get out of now. Dominik Ladler right behind Timothy Frisch, who nearly hits the wall there, or at least brushed it. And up into 4th. 2 cars in about 1 kilometer of track. Chapeau, Dominik Ladler.
Yeah, he's on a mission, this guy. He wants to get back to where the pole position he started with.
Gap up front has stayed about the same, grown a tiny bit actually, but overall hasn't changed too much since the start of the second lap.
Dominic Laddle have got a couple of seconds to catch up to Ali Zahir, but then he's got a big gap to Pascal Jordan. So his only chance for some more on-track action is in the next couple of minutes.
Oh, and Ali Zahir, big crash entering unknown force. He can spin it around 360, I guess. Gives the position to Dominic Laddle, and again, with damage, that car would not have been anywhere drivable now.
No, that was a high-speed smash into a wall there. That would have not been a fun day if damage was turned up.
It is very, very easy to do. Meanwhile, Timothy Fridge completely dropped off the train, I think. Yeah. But, yeah, that kind of mistake can happen so easily. And now, Julian Chicot being pushed by Pascal Jordan going into Wehrsalfen, who just, I think, underestimated the grip loss he would have there with the dirty air. Of course, in a braking zone where the track drops down from you, even with the lesser aero the GT4s have, they do have aerodynamics that are quite significant, especially for braking. But now under pressure. And if these two start fighting, that will bring Dominic Laddle into the picture way earlier than we would have thought.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a best of a bad situation for Dominic Laddle if Pascal Jordan and Julian Chicot can start fighting.
Keeps it behind for Mood Kurve. Oh, was it a little touch or did Julian Chicot lose the count himself there? Whatever the case, it was a good catch there. But now in the braking zone for Klostertal. Can see how unsettled both cars are with the drivers pushing really hard here right now. Julian Chicot being a bit more aggressive, going through Hua 8. But Pascal Jordan is keeping it with him. While you can really use the slipstream on the Döttinger Höhe in the GT4 cars, it's still not a free pass, is it? I mean, these cars, they do have less power than a GT3, less aero, so they are faster, but at the same time, keeping the speed high that you gained from a slingshot or in general the slipstream is not as easy as with a car with more power like a GT3 or the GT3X especially. So you actually have a chance at getting back on your opponent, don't you?
Yeah, it's they are, like you said, they are lower powered, so it takes a bit more time to kind of like wind up the speed difference. But so you can definitely do an overtake down Döttinger Höhe, but it does take a bit more to kind of get going. You really need to get a decent exit. You can't rely on just the slipstream effect to get the pass for you.
On board now with Pascal Jordan. Going down the Dittinger. Julian Chico weaving slightly from side to side. Trying to break the slipstream, but Pascal Jordan not really influenced by that. And he is gaining, but I don't think it's quite enough. He was too far away coming out of the Galgenkopf.
Yeah, I think he's just about going to be in an overtaking position at the end of the straight, unfortunately for him. But it does set you up nicely for the start-finish straight. Julian Sicard not feeling like he has to go defensive, still half a second back, so fair play.
You can't dive in as far back as, for example, with the GT3 into turn 1. And even then, the distance would have been quite ridiculous, but I think that would have been something that you wouldn't be surprised to see to being done. But with the GT4s, they just don't have the braking capabilities to really dive in that late. Especially the same on the same car.
Yeah, I suppose the bonus being here is that Sicko and Jordan have raced against each other enough times that Sicko knows that Jordan wouldn't go for a 6/10 dive 3 laps into a race. There's plenty of time left yet.
And of course still the pit stops to come, where people can fumble. Last week showed us how much the long run is actually worth with the tire advantage in the end. While of course it's, as we said earlier, exaggerated in a TCR car. In the G4 is still very much the case, as pretty much nobody in this race will change tires. I'm very certain of that, especially with the cars we have in here, with the drivers, who are all well aware of the strategies to do in those races.
Yeah, I would have thought if anybody changes tires, it's going to be people who've had spins in case it's really messed their tires up. But even so, I think Ladler's had like 2 incidents. Ali Zahir's had a bit of an off-track moment. Same with Pascal John did as well,
Yeah,
I think.
in lap 1.
But it's only 1, so they may well be able to just carry on driving.
So far, the only racer with a pretty mistake-free race is Julian Chicot, I think. Dennis Kurzer, I can't quite recall doing a bigger, but he had this near spin out of Dunlop. But Julian Chicot, so far from what we've seen, is driving a great race out there. Still doesn't remove the threat from Pascal Jordan. That's just 6/10 behind him.
One thing perhaps to take into account is that Dennis Kurzer is the only person right now to has a lap time on the board, which means nobody else has done a valid lap yet.
That is
so they will be starting to count up the incident points.
Yeah, of course, after 15 incident points, since we updated the incident point system, you will get a 5-second penalty. And if this RFL race ends like the last RFL races that we had, those 5 seconds will be quite significant at the end of a 1 hour race. So you
true.
don't really want to do that.
Julian Sikor seems to be soaking up the pressure right now, though. Pascal Jordan does keep coming back, but seems to just keeping his head down and driving a nice clean race.
Very different lines here through the triple right-hander. But it also feels like Pascal Jordan can't keep up with Julian Sikor. He's not quite fast enough that you would expect him to break away once he gets past.
No. He's dropped back a bit and he's closed back up again. I'm sure that's more the different speeds by the different drivers at different parts of the track than anything. It's not like a dramatically different pace difference.
Strong suit seems to be the first half of the Nordschleife.
Getting very close now.
Oh, Julian Sikor again very loose there. And now bumper to bumper.
Not the best place on the Nordschleife to try and make an overtake. I'm expecting him to kind of sit behind for a while and see what happens.
Definitely gives him a good chance to analyze the opponent he's up against. And both of them actually struggling to keep it on the inside of the carousel there. And a not so good exit for Julian Sikor. Now we are side by side approaching Hua 8. You have to lift for the next left-hander. And they make contact and both spin Pascal Jordan in the wall. That's why you don't necessarily want to go side by side there. I wouldn't put the blame necessarily on any one of them, but two cars into that corner.
It was very much a kind of racing incident situation from what we could see going on there, but it's let Dominic Ladler get straight back into the fight.
It can't be any more in this fight than this, just in between the two cars you are catching up to.
I'm sure that was the last thing that either of the two cars wanted to happen there. Not only did they have a coming together on a fairly tricky corner, like you were saying, but now Dominic Ladler's right in the mix.
Of course, Julian Sikor will be a bit relieved to know that he's still in the lead of the race. What he won't be any relieved about is having now not Pascal Jordan right behind him, but Dominic Ladler, the 3-time RENNSPORT Community League champion.
If there's any saving grace for Julian Sikor at the minute in the situation, it's that Pascal Jordan also is not that far behind. So Dominic Ladler's going to have his attention split two ways and not just focusing on getting past Sikor.
Riding high on the curb there, Julian Sikor, can be very dangerous. Especially since GT4 cars are quite low, and again a big drift out of the small carousel. And into the grass now again. Luckily for him, this will also compromise Dominic Ladler's exit out of the Galgenkopf, since he had to leave space for Julian Sikor, who's now in a good slipstreaming position for the straight, and actually giving him the flash. Not the Tim Troiler flash, but a flash.
It also means that Pascal Jordan's going to get the legendary double draft, going all the way down the Dortingen.
But here we can exactly see the problem. We can't just slingshot pass. Of course, now Julian Sikor is in front, but now look, Dominic Ladler tucks in behind, and look at the speed boost he is getting now. And Julian Sikor now back in the lead. I suspect they will go into the pit lane now as well.
They've all got quite a bit of fuel left. Oh no, they are all pitting. You are correct.
There we go. Felt like a very aggressive pit entry from Julian Chico.
Yeah, not wanting to waste any time there.
But would you look at that? All 3 cars in the pit lane. Who will emerge first?
Well, it's not going to be Julian Secor because he's changing tires.
That is very interesting. It seems like Pascal Jordan also lost quite some time on the jacks. Alizar, they're coming in the pit lane, and it will actually be Dominic Lala. But we have Dennis Kurzer staying out for another lap. Does that mean Dennis Kurzer is now leading this race? It will be tight on the exit, side by side. Dominic Lala has it, keep it within the white lines. And now Dennis Kurzer into the lead of the race.
Ali Zahir are also changing tires.
Well, my prediction was completely for the trash bin then, so... Next time
Ali Zahir also has a 5-second time penalty, which I'm assuming is for incident points.
It's very likely.
Dennis Kurzer has a drive-through penalty to be served.
No, that's passed by Dominic Lala. Oh, and kind of a mess there between the two. I'm not quite sure what was that. Maybe Dominic Lala thought that he made Dennis Kurzer lose his car's control.
Maybe.
If so, then fair play to him. Didn't quite see it. But drive-through penalty, that is...
He's got a drive-through penalty and a 5-second penalty, so I think that's going to be a lot of incident points.
But then he would have a 10-second penalty on top of that, because before you get the drive-through, you get a 10-second penalty.
Unless he has a large track-cutting incident.
That could probably be the case then. But it won't really help in this race, that's for sure.
No, that's for sure.
I know that we used to have a bug through turn 1 and 2. Not quite sure if it's still in place there.
Surprised by just how much time Dominic Ladler gained on Pascal Jordan there.
Yeah, Pascal Jordan, it took a long time for his BMW to be put on the jack, so he really misaligned there, I think, with his pit box. Now Pascal Jordan running up to Dennis Kurzer and looking down the inside of Flu. He didn't go for it, luckily, because that would have ended tragically. At least for one of the drivers, I can assure you that, but he definitely made his presence very noticeable there. Because he doesn't want to lose any time behind Dennis Kurzer, because he is still in the fight with Dominic Lala for the win. And big drift there by Dennis Kurzer. And now launching it down the inside. Oh, and very good move there by Pascal Jordan. Of course, held by Dennis Kurzer, not turning in there, but beautifully judged there. Made the car stop in time. And
I think you read the situation really well there.
Oh, and now big drift through unknown force by both of them, actually. But I also think he intimidated Dennis Kurzer into not really shutting the door there.
I think he did, yeah. Just before the Dennis Kurzer going wide, Pascal Jordan was going pretty heavy on the flashing. So he definitely made his intentions felt.
But look how Dennis Kurzer's keeping up with him.
Yeah, he's definitely not getting away.
feels like out of the sudden Dennis Kurzer activated some sort of attack mode or race mode on that BMW. Maybe he's just that kind of driver who needs another car in front of him to really stay focused. That's why he was so fast in the earlier stages and now again, but look at him go. It's not that Pascal Jordan is any slower than he usually is. Dennis Kurzer is just very fast right now.
Yeah. Yeah, he's I think he's gone Super Saiyan after that overtaking move.
Julian Chicot, after changing tires, 23.6 seconds behind Dominic Ladler. But that must mean that he made up some time somewhere already. I mean, of course, with fresh tires, that's what you're going for, but... Oh, and no, big into the wall. Maybe I spoke too early, but... Seems like the fresh tires have worked quite well up to this point.
Yeah, it's a bit of a radical tire saving technique there of using the barrier to make the corner.
What he saved in tires perhaps doesn't really translate to saving time. But we reached half race's distance, at least in terms of time. But for Dominic Lala, I think he didn't really have any normal races in recent times on the Nordschleife, did he? I mean, the last GT3 race, the final race of Season 2, was that back and forth with the pit stops, also him being spun around in turn 1 or 2, I think, and then making his way back from that. Oh no, I think it was into Dunlop. And now last time with the front-wheel drive cars being different on strategy and dropping off fairly early to come back. Maybe next time he will fancy a flag to lights to flag this way around finish.
Yeah, he's got to be craving just a normal everyday race right now. There's been some really strange ones recently.
Dennis Kurzer dropped a lot of time.
Yeah, yes, yeah. I'm guessing there's been some kind of incident going on there. He's getting very low on fuel, but he's...
Seems like Tim has run into some internet troubles. So for a change, it's not me this time around. But yeah, we can expect Dennis Kurzer to come in this lap. Oh, and not getting onto the grass there, but not far away from it either. And now coming into the pits from P3, Dennis Kurzer. Means Julian Chicot will get back into 4th. Or into 3rd from 4th.
looking back at the incident from turn 1, there was a little coming together between Fritsch, Zahir, and Jenkins, and they both kind of, well, collectively nudged Dominic Ladler in the back end, and that's what caused him to spin out.
Would you say it was a team effort or just an unfortunate amount of incidents chained to each other?
I think it was there was a lot of knock-on effect going on there. That was it was definitely not all the responsibility of one person. Unfortunately,
that's what racing can be sometimes. But I mean, it doesn't really matter in the end, since Dominic Lala is still leading this race after taking over last lap. But what I'm thinking about right now is, if we take a look at the standings, Dominic Ladler already in the lead with about 40 points to Joachim Thunder, 74 points to, or 70 points to Eric Heusler, and more than 100 points to Pascal Jordan. If he wins this race, Pascal Jordan currently sitting in P2, that would not quite guarantee, but put a big plus point for his championship effort this time around.
Yeah, we know Dominic Ladler's consistent, not just in his laps, but also in turning up for races. And with only 4 rounds in this championship, after being a good points lead after 2 is a pretty safe one for him. Did I say 4? Is it 3 rounds?
This one is 3 rounds, since it's also the last Founders League, or at least so-called Founders League Championship. Nordschleife will return, but in a different form.
But yeah, it'll give him a very comfortable lead going into the last round with the GT3s. So yeah, it's looking like a good championship position for Dominic Ladler.
I'm a bit surprised that for the... well, he had some good championship runs or championship challengers in the Community League, but he has won 3 out of 3 championships there, and in the Founders League just never could really find his footing so far until this season.
Yeah, true. We've had a couple of kind of surprise appearances by some Nordschleife specialists that have, and he's just never been able to put a championship together. I think it's the only one that he's not been able to claim, and with it being the last season of the Founders League, in air quotes, he'll probably be glad to be in this position right now.
But while we try to ramble about championship hopes and stuff, Pascal Jordan is quietly reeling in Dominic Ladler.
It's just visible back there. It's not out of contention just yet.
If we can just keep it together and keep this rate going, then he will be in with a good shot for the final 1 or 2 laps, I'd say.
About 9 minutes lap, so they're going to have another 2 laps left to finish the race, I think.
Yeah, I think it should be 2 laps after this one.
Yeah. Nobody seems to be in a problem fuel load wise. I think they've all got a handle on how much fuel they need to put in for the Nordschleife by now. Dennis Kurtzer still has his drive-through to serve. He pit stopped last time, but that does not count.
Of course, he had to pit there, otherwise he wouldn't be able to carry on to finish this race. Both him and Aliza are in pretty much no man's land. Julian Checo also not quite being able to really use the new tires he has now.
Not really, no. It was a brave gamble, and it may still pay off for him. But Pascal Jordan, currently the man on the move, closing up the gap to Dominic Ladler.
Right to the edge and into the grass with the left-hand tires. Do you think if this continues like it does, that Pascal Jordan will go for something risky, or really just play it safe and take that P2? With Julian Checo being more than 20 seconds behind him. But it's still easy to lose on the Nordschleife, isn't it?
It can be, yeah. I wonder though, so I think, like we were saying earlier, theory crafting about points, if he does end this race behind Dominic Ladler, yeah, he's probably fairly comfortably in second place, but like we've said a few times with the crashing that's been happening, the damage is off. So if he does hit the wall hard, it's only time that you lose, and he has got head math 17 seconds ahead of Julian Checo right now, so he can afford to not exactly go spinning off into the distance, but he can afford a bit of an incident and still come out ahead of Julian Checo. So he may well be thinking of pushing for it.
He has approximately 16 minutes, 16, 17 minutes to show us what he's willing to do.
Yeah. I think he's got very little to lose if he tries it. I'll put it that way.
However, first he has to come close. And on the Grand Prix circuit, he dropped quite some time. So the Nordschleife is definitely a strong suit against the Austrian.
One thing I'll carry on from my point from earlier, Pascal Jordan still not done a valid lap. And his time is currently red, so he's already validated this lap. So the other side of that might be that if he carries on pushing and makes incident points, he could gain time from that, which would not be great.
but already 4/10 gains since entering the Nordschleife.
There is only Dominic Ladler and Dennis Kurtzer on track at the minute who are on valid laps at this point in the Nordschleife, which is fairly early on. So everyone else is just using that buffer of incident points and hoping nothing bad happens. Of course, Dominic Ladler involved in a lot of contacts earlier on, which will have gained him incident points. So he's maybe purposefully taking it a bit more carefully.
Yeah, we don't quite know what state the tires are in. I mean, both cars seem fairly planted compared to what we've seen in other cases. But other than that, it's just... You would expect Dominic Lala to be a bit worse off, but on the other hand, Pascal Jordan also had that contact with Julian Chicot and subsequent spin. And that incident on lap 1, where he went wide into Hatzenbach.
Yeah, maybe more than the spinning. It's been managing tyre heat as a factor here, to be honest. I wonder if, like I was saying, Dominic Ladler has been doing valid laps, so he's obviously keeping in control of his car and maybe managing his tyre temperatures a bit better than Pascal Jordan. Pascal Jordan obviously playing catch-up right now, so he's going to be pushing. Not done a valid lap yet, so you can say, you can perhaps judge from that he's been pushing a bit harder.
We're able to see Pascal Jordan there in the distance.
Also, perhaps Dominic Ladler is on red sectors right now, which means that he hasn't beaten his personal best through a sector, whereas Pascal Jordan's are all green. So he really is giving it everything he can. The gap not coming down particularly quickly, though. It does. I wonder if Pascal Jordan's maybe just got a better kind of sector 7, 8, 9 time. That seemed to be where he gained the time last time.
Yeah,
that was a lot of time, so I said time.
Yeah, well, it was only last lap to compare to, right? Right now he's dropping it quite a bit through the carousel. But overall, on this lap so far, he lost time. He entered with 4 seconds to Dominic Lala.
Alizar here now with a 10-second penalty to be served. So that means he's used up a lot of his incident points.
Of course, after the 10-second penalty, you get a drive-through, and then it's not far from a DSQ, which of course you really want to avoid.
Yeah, that's going to put a crimp in your day, especially after driving 50 minutes on the Nordschleife.
And of course it impacts your safety rating in, well, not a positive way.
Dominic Ladler's last lap was an 8:51. Pascal Jordan and Julian Chicot both did low 49s. like you're saying, though, past the gap between Ladler and Jordan has grown by about a second this lap. So be interesting to see what time Ladler does in this one, whether he's been picking the pace up on purpose.
Has come down to 5 seconds. But unless something big happens, that will be hard to overcome.
Yeah, he's definitely not had 5 seconds extra pace on top of Ladler at any point so far, so it's not like you'd expect him to close that up.
On the other hand, it's not like unexpected things did not happen.
True.
So
not much else of this race has gone to plan, so who knows?
I mean, with this being the last lap in the GT4s, maybe we should tease you about what comes next. Of course, tomorrow we will have the RCE, the Porsche Mission R at Hockenheim. Then next week we will go back to the RENNSPORT Community League for the second race. And after that we will have our final of Season 3. With GT3 is a 2-hour race. I'm very excited for that, I gotta admit. GT3s in the Founders League so far have been staggeringly good.
There's not much better you can get than GT3s around the Nordschleife, except for maybe more GT3s around the Nordschleife.
And some other classes just thrown in, basically. But then you just have the 24 Nürburgring and NLS races, respectively. But, I mean, yeah, it's hard to describe. I mean, you would usually expect, okay, it's just GT3s, they have exciting racing, and if you think about GT3 racing, of course, Nordschleife comes to mind, Spa comes to mind, Daytona comes to mind, great races, but the Nordschleife with GT3s, it's basically the king class, the fastest cars we ever had on this track for a reason. Well, we, of course, had the Group C prototypes, which were a bit faster, but in this capacity, they are within the 24 hours of the Nordschleife the fastest touring cars we ever had.
They're also the ones that the drivers know the most. It is, for good reason, really, one of the most driven classes. And these guys, they know their way around a GT3 and they know their way around the Nordschleife, so they know where they can push a lot more than they do perhaps with some of the support classes, if you want to call them that. So yeah, it's a lot more of a tight race when you get people who know the machinery and know the track a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. It's the difference to other cars, especially from older times, that you can take them as far as you want, basically. These cars can take a beating. I mean, even as they usually say with most modern endurance races, they are not really endurance races anymore. They are 24-hour sprints. And that is also because the cars just can be pushed to their limits for 24 hours straight, because they've made them this robust. Also, those GT4 cars here, you don't really have to hold back at any point. And with a very competitive field, you can't afford to hold back.
Yeah, that's right. It is just flat out for the entire 24 hours. It's an endurance race, but it's less about the endurance of the machinery as much as it is the endurance of the drivers now.
And with 2 hours being the final GT3 race that we have, it opens up quite some strategies, I'd say, because you can't make it on one stop. You will have to make a second stop. Will you take tires? Will you not take tires? I think we will see at least 3 or 4 different strategies being applied, because you just can't do this many different things.
Yeah, with us still being on fixed setups here, everyone starts with the same amount of fuel, and it's not enough to get you the first hour of the race. So it's whether people have a short first stop and then a longer second stop with tyres, or if they have a long first stop and then try to get their set of tyres to last the second 90 minutes or so of the race. It does open up quite a bit for different strategies, and we've seen in other races before, people like having a bit of a strategic choice and a play around and see what works and what doesn't.
Maybe we'll also see a no-stopper. Like, not no-stopper, but no tire changing. You can double stint the tires, but it's very, very risky. And if it's worth the payoff in the end, we've seen last time how much tire degradation does affect lap times throughout the Nordschleife. I mean, you pretty much turn for about 70% of the track, except for the Dörtinger Höhe.
Yep, true.
In which case you also need the grip of the tires at the end of it, because you have Antonius Buche and Tiergarten, two flat out turns, but if your tires are not up to it, can be not only risky but actually slower, because you will have to lift off a bit.
And another thing possibly to take into account is that there might be some game updates that change some things. You never know. And if those come about, then things can become a bit less familiar again. You can throw a bit more of a spanner in the works.
If you of course want to know what kind of things you can expect from the next update, check out the last radio check on the RENNSPORT YouTube channel. Lucas, Kim, and Morris went through all of the details back then.
Yeah, you got a few hints and some sneak peeks of what might be coming up. Got another 2 weeks before the last round of the RFL, so you might see some updates before then. Who knows?
What I just noticed in my head with the M2 CS coming in, which is kind of nice, and I hope we get that from more manufacturers, but we have a good ladder from one manufacturer, basically a manufacturer ladder, with the M2 CS being the beginner car. Then you will have the Pro M GT4 car, the Pro GT3 car, and then the ultimate goal, the LMDH car. So you could basically play through most of things with BMWs only.
Yeah, true.
They just have to develop a TCR car now, and you would even have that.
Yeah, I was trying to think what you could do with a TCR car. You could do Audi TCR, Audi GT4, and Audi GT3, but unfortunately that's as far as you can go there.
Actually, I'm just wondering that BMW doesn't have a TCR car, since they do have front-wheel drive cars nowadays. Since the 1 Series BMWs switched to front-wheel drive, I think 4 years ago, they would be eligible for a TCR conversion, I think.
Back in the day when I were a lad, before you were a twinkle in your father's eye and all that, BMW used to run a car in the British touring car, and it was one of the only rear-wheel drive cars that was running. So
isn't it running still?
I don't honestly
don't they have
know.
the 5 Series in there somewhere, or the 3 Series?
Maybe too.
Because, of course, BTCC is a different touring car level. It's not, I think, Super Touring? Or was that the old one? Whatever.
And that was the role. I think it's just on its own completely different set of rules for reasons.
But the gap between Lala and Jordan hasn't come down this lap, and it's Dominik Lala turning into Hohenrhein for the final time this race to claim another victory in the RENNSPORT Founders League. Win number 2 for Dominik Ladler, and a good bit for his title fight. Pascal Jordan coming home in second, which would still give him a good amount of points to finish the season in a strong position.
Yeah, for sure. He's looking good for his season as well. Dominic Ladler's got to be happy with that one, especially after the start he had.
Julian Chicot, I think he will be a bit disappointed with P3 on one hand, but also very happy. I mean, podium position for him is very good.
Nice one. Nice 360 there as well. Always good to see. But just so you know, the current BMW in the BTTC is a 330i RENNSPORT.
Something. And that one should still be rear drive. Of course it is. It's a BMW 3. Ali Zahir on his comeback. Maybe not quite the race he hoped for, but still coming home in fourth and finishing this race. Still flashing his lights, so I can't be too disappointed with it. But that's a wrap on this race. I think it was fairly exciting for very different reasons than usually.
Yeah, it was a bit of a crazy race. It was definitely not the race either of us called it was going to be.
Another last to first challenge from Dominic Ladler. Action-packed fighting between Jordan Chicot and between Kurzer Fridge and Zaya. So, yeah, it's lots to watch over for in retrospect. I guess the RENNSPORT Founders League channel on Discord will see some discussions, perhaps. But what do you think now going into the last race in 2 weeks? GT3s, 2 hours, and Dominic Ladler with 2 victories in the back.
He's got to be feeling fairly confident, hasn't he? But I don't think he's just going to let anyone else have the last victory. He's going to want to go out on top. So I don't think we're going to see him playing it safe next time. I think he's still going to be pushing.
Well, and he still technically hasn't won the championship since Pascal Jordan. Is only 130 points behind, and if you win and your opponent does not score, that does mean he would be able to get more points than that.
Yeah.
Doing that, of course, is another question. I mean, especially if your name is Dominic Ladler, I don't think that you will really have to worry about that. But I think Pascal Jordan is also here to make an impact again. And it's actually fairly tight behind. Joachim Thunder 139, Julian Chicot 115, Eric Häusler 104, Alizar 92, and even Dennis Kurzer and Timothy Fridge with an outside chance of a podium.
Yeah, there's still plenty of places up for grabs. It's not just the Dominic Ladler show. And hopefully we'll have a few more of those guys back next week next time in
next
the GT3s. And that.
Next week, of course, we will go to Monza, of all places. We haven't been there for quite a while, so I'm happy to go back there with GT3s for episode 2 of the Community League Season 4. But until then, I wish you a great week. Hope you have, well, not quite, because we will see each other tomorrow with the Porsche Mission R at Hockenheim. But until then, I wish you a great evening and a good Saturday. And until then, have a great time and goodbye.
Goodbye.